Hey Wild, Lauren Wilde here. Today we are going to be learning about Tarot 101. Okay, this is the March workshop and I'm really excited to teach this. If you have to be our Patreon member or an apprentice or in any of my programs, you have access to all the existing tarot stuff I've ever done. If you're an apprentice, we talk about tarot in length in Awakening the Oracle Moon Project, which you will experience in the fall. But I wanted to get out this shorter teaching because in every moon report I put out a tarot reading, and I want to give you guys some tips and tricks and show you how to get your tarot practice started. Okay, so I have a worksheet that will come with it. I'll also share some links to some great articles on tarot, the history of tarot, and all of that stuff. Okay. All right. So first things first, let me show you these two decks. Okay. See how I have these like little bags? I use these little bags to carry my tarot around because I don't carry the boxes. I carry them everywhere. And then also I have this box that has my original, well, it did have my original tarot deck in here, my Rider-Waite. Okay, so I'm going to be grabbing lots of different tarot decks to show you guys what they look like. I just realized I need to grab my big one. Sorry about that. Thought I had all my things right here. I did not. All right, so what we are looking at here is an enlarged version of the original tarot, which is called the Rider-Waite deck. All right, so the Rider-Waite deck has very old image of tarot, right? Then you have modern tarot, which, you know, there's tons of tarot cards out now, but they're all based on the same system, which I'll explain. Okay, so this is like modern tarot, so you can see how the images are different. Now, knowing what kind of tarot deck you're using is important, okay? Because there's lots of different systems, and what I'm teaching you is based on, in this class, the Rider-Waite tarot system, okay? I'm going to show you Thoth, but Thoth is complicated, and I always have people start with the Rider-Waite and then move into Thoth. So like my apprentices in year 2, we will be getting into Thoth. All right, so this is a Thoth deck. It was created by Aleister Crowley. It's a high magic deck, and the imagery is beautiful and different. I love the imagery of this deck. It's again very high magic. It's based in Kabbalah and astrology. And you know, Crowley was very much a complete heathen, not super proud of Crowley, but his system is beautiful, and I love his system. Okay, so this is the deck that I use for my professional reads. I've had this deck for 4 years, and it is the deck that I use anytime I'm doing a professional reading. This is the deck. I don't let anybody touch this deck besides me. This is very much like my very personal deck. Okay, now I'm starting to get that way about this deck because I use it so often now. I've been using this deck for a year, and I take it a lot of places with me, so it's really taken in the impression, and I use them pretty often, right? So I always have my Thoth deck and my Rider-Waite deck with me because I'm a witch, a professional witch, and so I never know if I might get paid to do a reading or something, right? You don't have to do that. I'm just letting you know. All right, so what I have are these two tools, okay? And that is exactly what tarot is. Tarot is a tool, all right? So you can kind of see some of the differences between the way that they look. If you felt them, you'd also notice they have a very different vibration to them. They're unique in that way. And what I want to get into is that regardless, the Thoth system is different than the Rider-Waite based system. So I just wanted to show you my Thoth deck. and I'm going to put it over here, and we are going to focus primarily on our original Rider-Waite deck, and then also our modern Waite deck. This is what I will most likely be using to teach with. Okay, so let's talk about some of the things when you pick out your deck. The first thing is I tend to recommend like either starting off with the original type of Rider-Waite. It's really inexpensive. It's a yellow box. It's called Universal Rider-Waite. Or something that's modern that is like still using things like the wands, the swords, the cups, and the pentacles or the coins to get started so that you can get used to that. Now there's tons of decks that are out there that are like staffs and knives or whatever, right? And it's like specific to that deck. But when you really first start using tarot, I recommend you start with the original so you get used to that language and those archetypes, and then you can like move into whatever. However, if you've already started your tarot practice with like a certain deck because you're really drawn to it, then go with that. Now, you will find that it might take a while before you find the tarot deck that you really want to work with. My suggestion would be finding out what your ancestry is. There's like Celtic tarot, there's witch tarot, there's shadow work tarot, there's druid tarot, there's all kinds of tarot. And you might have to get lots of different decks in order to find the deck that like really calls you, right? Like the one that claims you. I know like for me, my Thoth deck is like the one that claims me. And I don't really feel like any modern tarot has particularly claimed me, to be honest. I really don't, other than my Thoth deck. And so you might take some time to figure out, you know, and play with different cards. Back before COVID, and I was like getting into witchy stuff, I would meet up with people and look at their decks, and everybody would bring some of their favorite decks, and we would just kind of like share them and like look at them and put down cards and stuff. When you do that, you know, you just set the intention with that, like anyone can touch my cards, and you just make sure that you smoke clear them and reset them afterwards. And I'll talk about what that means in a minute. So when you get your deck, there's a couple of things that you need to do. First things first, you get your deck, you need to claim it for yourself. So you need to have a bit of an initiation ritual with your deck. So what you would do is, you know, you would take, like this is a brand new Oracle deck that I just got when I was in Hawaii. And I really haven't cleared it or set it yet. So I'm going to show you guys what I'm going to do. Remember, I'm using Oracle, but it's still the same. You can apply this to any item that you get, whether that be tarot cards or a pendulum or runes or whatever it is. You are claiming these things as your own. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get, well, let me find the cards. Where are they? Oh yeah, that's right. Like I said, it's a brand new deck. So I'm going to get all the cards out of the deck. You want to take the ones out that are like the instruction cards and like stick them back in their box. Okay. Because they will be on the bottom of your deck, most likely, if they have those. And then you want to take all the cards that you have. Okay. The next thing you want to do is you want to get a candle or a lighter or something like that. I have this like little candle that I'm going with. And you want to get your smoke clearing agent of choice. Okay. So I'm going to do a workshop on smoke clearing, like different herbs and what they're for. But for now, let's just go with like what feels right. Okay. And so for me, I have this little bundle that my friend made me that's local to me. And it has juniper, and it has sage, and it has actually, I don't think that's sage. I'm not exactly sure, but it's a Celtic bundle. So it has like a bunch of different herbs that are Celtic. Another really great herb that's super inexpensive and it's wonderful for clearing anything is dried rosemary. It burns really good, and rosemary is for protection. It's also for new beginnings, which is a good herb to use to claim something like as an initiation. So like I literally went to like, I think Trader Joe's. You can go to like Kroger or whatever your grocery store is. And like, you know where you see like the fresh herbs in the little containers? Just buy one of those of rosemary and take it out and like set it on your altar. Like I have a piece of selenite that's like this ginormous piece that's like a charging station. And I just set it right there underneath the full moon and it charges it. And then it was like $3 for that. And I have all this rosemary. You can also, if you have a garden, you know, you can grow rosemary and you can burn, you just dry it and then you would burn rosemary. And you want to, you know, find one that has more of a protective yet clearing agent. The thing about sage that a lot of people don't know is that sage works like bleach. So especially white sage works like bleach. It like clears all the energy off of everything. And I like to think about this like your gut biome, which is like if you take an antibiotic, it kills all of the, you know, bacteria. It kills, and there's good bacteria and bad bacteria. It's like once that happens, you have to reseed the gut with good, right? It's the same kind of thing as your cards or whatever you're clearing after you use white sage. You have to reset it. So for me, if I use sage, then I will use another either essential oil or another herb after that to set it with what I want it to be. Okay. So for example, if I burn white sage, which I do use white sage, and I, you know, I'm very thoughtful in how I do it. You would just take this little tiny piece and you light it, right? You want to light your candle and you want to state that I am here. If you want to really get into it, you can also call the corners. You can ask, you know, the ancestors, guides of the north to be with you, the east to be with you, the south to be with you, and the west to be with you as you know, as you claim and initiate your deck. And then you would, you know, light this smoke blend that you have, and then you would just kind of like go over it. Now, depending on what you want to do, if you feel more nervous, I know the first deck I ever did, I cleared every card. And what you're going to do is you're going to clear the card, and then you're like, I'm clearing you of any, you know, energy or entities or anything that's attached that isn't in my highest good. You state it by saying your name, like, this is the deck of Lauren Wilde. It brings me wisdom and discernment. I'm very clear as to what's not for me and what is for me. This deck is valuable to me. I now claim you and you claim me. And I would go through the entire deck, just speaking to the deck about what I want, right? So if it's your tarot, it's like, you know, I'm ready to go on a journey of understanding myself more deeply and clarity around my shadow and integrating that shadow into gold. I am seeking the highest guidance, and you can start to call in your ancestors. Like I call on my ancestors to help me understand how to implement these teachings. I call on my higher self for wisdom. I call on my deities. So then I would, you know, like Lakshmi and Briad, Kuan Yin, the Marys, Jesus, Buddha, Archangel Michael, right? And then I would just keep going through it, and you can begin to kind of chant, like say you don't know exactly what you want to do, you know, you could speak the Psalm 31 or 91 over them, whatever feels protective to you, but you're like, this is the deck of Lauren Wilde, but you're saying your name. This is the deck of Lauren Wilde. I claim you, you claim me, the highest wisdom, the highest light, highest consciousness. There's some cards that are falling out and I'm like, is this a reading? And then you just keep clearing them until you're done. So I'm almost done. Then we'll move on. This is the deck of Lauren Wilde. Highest truth, peace of mind, clarity, discernment. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So now I have sage cleared my deck. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my rosemary, right? I'm going to light my rosemary. And then I'm going to set it in my burning dish or my cauldron, okay? And then I'm going to take my whole deck and I'm speaking incantations. Let this deck bring me wisdom. Let this deck bring me discernment. Let it heal my mind. Bring me wisdom and bring me peace. So it is, so mote it be. Sha. right. And then I'm going to take my deck. I'm going to hold it over my heart. I'm going to take a couple of breaths. Exhale, let it go. I feel myself connecting to this deck. It is bringing me wisdom, peace, and awareness. Thank you. Then you're going to take your deck and you're going to knock on it 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Okay. And I am calling on only the energy of the highest beings of light, truth, consciousness, and love. Okay. All right. So my deck is now set. Now, other ways to put your energy towards it would be you can literally sleep with your deck. Like you could put it in a bag and sleep with it in the bed with you. You can put it by you. You could put it in your purse. So you're taking it with you, right? The more that you hold it, the more energy you're going to invest in it, the closer it's going to get to reading you. Okay. And like I said, that's why I have a deck that like I read professionally. I don't really like read myself a ton out of that deck. I read people, and then I have a very personal deck, right? So like my Thoth is my more professional deck. And then, you know, my Light Seers is more of like what I read, you know, for myself. And so you can do that. You don't have to, it's kind of more advanced, but just, you know, take what you need and leave the rest. You can also take things like crystals, right? So I have this piece of rose quartz that I'm going to set on top of this because the mana cards from Hawaii, like it's really like I'm working with like love here, like really trying to connect to a deeper type of love that is Hawaiian that I'm not indigenous to, you know, so I have a lot of respect for it and its wisdom. So I'm putting the stone of great compassion on it. Okay. So there's that. Now, say you have, you know, you go somewhere and people do touch your cards, then you don't have to go through that elaborate initiation with them. You can just take, you know, whatever you use to smoke clear and you can run it through and you just, you know, reclaim it back to yourself. Maybe put it on some selenite or black tourmaline or a stone that feels good, or you can set it on top. You could also put it on your altar, put them underneath the full moon. But all of those things will recharge it. Okay. I like to keep my things in bags, and then I have stones in the bags, and I like to wrap them up in things like silk and stuff that like hold this energy of what I want them to have. Okay. So it's totally up to you. The first year, I just kept them in like this crappy little box in my purse. So, you know, do what you want to do. Okay. The next thing would be set and setting. All right. So when I do a tarot reading, there's sometimes I do a tarot reading and it's just like, what you got, right? Like just what you got. And then there's sometimes where I feel like I really need to do an in-depth, like I need to spend an hour divining myself. And when I do that, I will lay out like a cloth and I will light a candle and I will light incense and I will call the corners. But for general like readings, I will just pull cards. You know, I always have a candle lit. But you know, that's how I am. If I start pulling cards and then start getting serious, then I might be like, oh, we need to bring out the big guns, and I'll roll out my tarot cloth and I'll bring out little statues and I will set the container for a deeper reading if I have the time. Okay. I personally tend to do my bigger readings at the new moon and sometimes at the full moon, but then also at the pagan wheel of the year solstices. So Osara, Litha, Mabon, and Yule. So the big quarters, right? The big shifts into the next season. I tend to do that. And then I tend to do it at my birthday and then at the beginning of the year. So all of that being said, those are just some of the little basics. Now, let's talk about what tarot is, right? So tarot is a tool. I remember when I first got into tarot and I was really afraid, people would be like, tarot's a tool for the devil. And honestly, it's just a tool. It's what the person puts into it. And my favorite example is like the Bible, right? So for some people, the Bible is like this life-giving, life-breathing work, you know, of art, inspired art. And some people used it to kill thousands, millions of people in crusades, and it was a tool of evil, you know? So it's like what you do with it, the intention that you have is everything, okay? So that's just the first thing to understand, is that it's just a tool. What you do with it is up to you. The second thing is that when you first start reading tarot, my suggestion is you don't go outside of yourself. And what that means is that your tarot practice is fully focused on divining you, your own shadow, your own inner child, your own parts, right? It's not like you're trying to read for other people and see if people are soulmates or whatever. Like, don't get into that yet. Okay, that's more advanced. It becomes difficult. You just really and truly just focus on you and yourself and your higher self. The other thing I like to recommend is when you first start is don't divine the future. Just stay in the now, stay in the present, or go back to the past, or focus on like shadow pieces that you need to integrate. But don't ask like, what's the outcome, right? Like if you're afraid, just keep it focused on you now in the present moment. Okay. So I'll show you what I mean by that. So all of that being said, let's now get into what tarot consists of. All right. So let me pull up the worksheet that you guys will have, and we will get into it. All right. So first things first, awakening the inner oracle, understanding the tarot. All right. So tarot consists of 78 cards. Okay. 22 of them are major life events known as the trump cards or the major arcana. I finally now feel free to be able to say Trump and not want to vomit in my mouth. Yay. The trump cards are represented by the Fool, which is card 0, through the World card. All right. And that is the end of a cycle. So what, is happening when you pull one of those cards that isn't a court card, a pip card, which are number cards, or an ace, is that there's something like a major life event is happening. Okay. Now, I'm not going to get fully into all of those things. I'll save that for tarot workshop number 2. But really and truly, what you're looking at is like the major arcana represents a life event. All of the major cards will represent every aspect of life. Okay. And that's why tarot is so cool, is because it follows the hero's journey. But in tarot, we call it the fool's journey, right? They're the same thing. They follow the arc of human life and experience. So, what we're looking at when we're looking at the court cards are things that are happening, in your world or whatever that is that you are divining about. Okay. The next thing is that the deck will consist of 16 court cards. The court cards are like our pages, our knights, our queens, our kings. And so, and there's various traits based on which deck you're using, but they represent pretty much the same thing. Excuse me. And that is, they represent people, okay? Certain people in your life, and certain relationships that you are in. And then the number cards, which are known as the pip cards, there are 40 of them, and they represent life situations, okay? They represent everyday things that are happening, okay? So the difference between the number cards and the major arcana trump cards is that the major arcana trump cards, they're like big things are happening. These are big ordeals that are happening. The numbers are like, this is everyday stuff that you're just dealing with, that's kind of like provides the narrative of what the big conversations are. Okay. Now, the next thing is going to be discussing the energetic suits and their elements. So the first suit would be wands, and this represents fire. So wands, they move quick. Wands are the first fire of inspiration, of creativity, but it's not form yet. It is passion, it's inspiration, it's taking action, but there's no form, okay? The swords, which represent the air element, are all thoughts. They are in the mind, all right? They're the element of the thought world, of the imagination, of things that you are contemplating, that you're thinking about, or that are ruminating thoughts in your head, that, they're in your head. They're not outside of you. They're not in the world. They're in your head, okay? Now, once we get to cups, which is water, this is where we start to see, an opportunity for romance, an opportunity for love, an opportunity for embodiment, an opportunity for relationships and healing, and for emotions, Okay, the water suit represents like getting more emotionally attached to things, like starting to actually put, you know, some of the effort from the original inspired vision and the action and then the thought process. And now we're starting to get somewhere, right? Like we're starting to take some form in the terms of emotions. And then our final suit would be the pentacles or the coins. And this is the earth aspect of the deck. Now, the earth aspect of the deck means that it is material, it is here, it is something physically happening. It's not an idea, it's not a thought, it's not a passionate, you know, inspired concept. It's not emotional, it's physically here. So it represents things like money, houses, jobs, right? Like it represents like real material aspects that are physically here in the world. They are stabilized and they are tangible. You can touch them, okay? Money tends to be a big part of it. Stability, long-term projects, things that already have matter involved, okay? So for example, if you see a spread that has a ton of swords in it, it's like, this is in your head. Like this thing is ruling, it's sealing your peace, it's in your head. If you see a ton of wands in a reading, it's like, this is really calling you to take action and be inspired and find your creative center. If you see a lot of water cups, then we know that this is a very emotional matter, right? Like it's very much like taking up a lot of emotional energy in your body. You might be feeling intuitively about something. It could be centered around relationships and love. And then when we see pentacles, we're talking about things that are really physically happening. We're talking about, you know, real job opportunities, real friendships happening, real money, like real things that are happening in the world. Okay. All right. So the next piece is understanding the numerology of the cards. So number one would be the ace cards. The aces always represent new beginnings and potential. All right. So they represent the very beginning thought. You know, it's like when you see an ace, it's like, oh, there's a new opportunity on the horizon, but you have to put the effort into it to see it manifest. Okay. When you see twos, they represent balance, duality, and choices. Okay. It means that there's two things happening. You need to make a decision. When you see threes, these represent growth, teamwork, and success. All right. So typically it means working in the power of threes. When you see fours, these represent structure and stability like a square. Okay. Foundations. When you see fives are the hardest in the deck in all of the suits. They represent conflict, change, loss, and hardship. They can be sadness, depression as well. Okay. The sixes are compromise, harmony, balance, and healing. The seven involves faith, contemplation, and wisdom. Eights are movement and determination. Nines are coming to fruition, like you're like right on the edge of a breakthrough one way or another. And then 10 is completion, fulfillment, and the ending of a cycle. Okay. So when we have just these general understandings of what, you know, what these things represent, it allows us to be able to start putting things into context. Okay. So the first thing that we're going to do, or I guess it's not the first, but one thing we're going to do is we're going to lay some cards. Okay. So I'm going to show you guys how to lay some cards and some different shuffle techniques. So first of all, my deck is already warmed up and ready to go. It's already been initiated. I use this deck all the time. All right. So I'm going to start the reading by knocking 3 times. Spirit, please give me wisdom and discernment. The number one thing about tarot is you have to give it a question. If you do not give it a question, you will not know how to read it. And it can lead to an anxiety, especially if you pulled something like the death card and there's no understanding as to why that is. So what you want to understand is that there is energy that you have to put into the reading in order to get a reading that you can read. All right. So for example, let's see what, let me ask you a question. What is the Pisces new moon holding for me? You know, what's the possibility of the Pisces new moon for me? I've stated my question and I am now shuffling. What is the possibility that the new moon in Pisces holds for me? I'll shuffle it a couple of times. I'm going to keep saying my question. What is the possibility that the new moon in Pisces holds for me? I'm gonna let it know I'm gonna do 2 more shuffles. Oh, I like that. I see the Queen of Pentacles and the star on the bottom. What is the possibility that the Pisces new moon holds for me? And one more, please. What is the possibility that the new moon Pisces holds for me? All right. So what I'm going to do is I am going to lay 1 card. Okay. So here I get the 10 of Wands. All right. So we know 10s represent completion. Something's coming to completion. All right. Something is like, I can't do this anymore. It's time to find a new inspired vision. And what's underneath that is the Queen of Pentacles. All right. So this concept that, you know, I'm responsible for everything and everyone, and I'm the only one that, you know, is responsible for these things. This is like kind of sort of coming to an end. Now, what's interesting is that the Queen of Pentacles is the archetype that I've been working to manifest for almost 4 years. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay surrounding cards. Okay. So right here, I've got the 7 of Pentacles. And on the other side, I have the Empress. All right. And so, you know, and I'll show you what to do when you want a deeper clarification. Then I have the 2 of Cups and I have the Star. All right. So what I'm interested in is these pieces right here. All right. So what is above it is what's conscious in my thoughts. What's below it is what's below it. All right. So what's under the Empress is the Star. What's under the 7 of Pentacles is the 2 of Cups. And what is the 10 of Wands about? The Queen of Pentacles. All right. So I now have a 6-card reading. Now, what I would do and what you need to do and what you need to understand is that the thing that is just as important to your tarot card practice as your tarot cards is a journal. So you need a book of mirrors or a book of shadows. I keep all of my major readings in my book of shadows, like my big witchy book, because I'll come back to it over and over, right? So let me grab my book of shadows. It's like I said, my big ass witchy book. I'm about to buy a new one to start a new journey because I'm almost done with this one. So what I will do is I will write this out. Okay, so on a fresh page, I'm going to write, I'm going to write new moon in Pisces. Okay, and then I'm going to date it. So today is March 2nd, 2021. And in the middle, I'm going to write down what, you're going to write down the question you asked. What does the new moon in Pisces hold for me? Question mark. All right, so that was my question. All right, you have to make sure you date it and you write down the question that you asked. Okay, now what I like to do is in my book, I like to draw the squares. All right, so I would say this is 1, and then I would say this is 2, 3. Okay, and then down here I'd write what's below it. And then I would do 4, 5, 6. Now, what I would do and what I encourage you to do is then after that, you're going to write 1. Okay. And here I'm going to write the 10 of Wands. Okay. So it'll look like this. All right. So it will say the 10 of Wands. And then here I will get out the book and I will write down what the book says. What does the book say about the 10 of Wands? And I'll scribble, you know, coming to completion with burdens I can't hold anymore. Right? And then I would, you know, write down what the book says. And then under that, I would write my own interpretation of what's coming up. And I'd be like, yeah, I can't do everything alone. And I need to lean on my admin team more than ever to grow. Right? So, and like that makes total sense. And what's under that is the Queen of Pentacles, right? So then I would write 5, Queen of Pentacles, which is my goal. The Queen of Pentacles is my personal goal. Like it haunts me, like that's my personal goal. Is that, what's under that is in order to become the Queen of Pentacles that I want to be, I have to recognize what areas are too much of a burden for me to hold anymore, right? So this is the shadow work. This is you doing the work and experiencing the light bulbs of it revealing to you what you need to know about yourself, and then bringing awareness to be like, yes, I see. After that is when you get to decide what you want to do the work about. But this is what I would do about the entire thing. And then I would go to number 2, which would be a surrounding card as to what this is about, which is the 7 of Pentacles, right? Which is like staying diligent, staying on task, don't give up. It might feel like it's boring or, mundane, but it's like consistently keep putting the work or the effort into the thing I'm trying to build, right? Like the school, the programs, the steady work, right? The vision of getting this, all of these witches out into the world, teaching shadow work and integration skills and blah, 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 right? And then what else is the Empress, right? So it's like the creatrix, fertile ideas, like being the creatrix of all of this. And what's under that is the Star, right? So, there's all of these different pieces that I resonate in here, and I would write that down. Now, let me show you the next thing, okay? So say that you read this and you're like, okay, well, what does the 10 of Wands particularly mean for me in this situation? What I would do is I would take my tarot deck and I would ask for a clarification card. And what I would use is what's called the intuitive shuffle. All right, so then I would state the question, like, Spirit, what is the 10 of Wands about? And you don't have to do the intuitive shuffle. You can also just do the general, Vegas shuffle, where you just ask and you just shuffle 3 times and then lay the cards down. I'll get to reversals here in a minute. So in terms of the 10 of Wands, Spirit, what is the 10 of Wands about in regards to the new moon in Pisces? What is the 10 of Wands about for me in this reading? What's the 10 of Wands? That one? Yeah. Okay. Okay, it's the Fool. So taking a new leap, a new step. Say, I want one more. What is the 10 of Wands about in terms of my new moon in Pisces reading? What's this about? Okay. Rope. Okay. 8 of Wands, the Magician, and the Chariot. So some new stuff's coming through and I need to be prepared, right? Also, I got the Knight of Wands that fell on the ground. So some fast moving action is coming my way in the Pisces new moon is what I'm hearing, right? And so sometimes the 8 of Wands can be destabilizing and really be fast moving, Uranian type energy. And, the Magician and the Chariot tells me, like, I might have to stand my ground. I might have to stay focused on these 7 of Pentacles, these mundane tasks, and not be like shiny new thing, right? And like stay focused on the thing that I'm trying to manifest. So, this would be a reading that I would record and then I would just leave it, and then you eventually would come back to it, especially during Virgo season when the full moon is in Pisces and we've made a half cycle to be able to look back on what this was about, okay? Because usually there is some sense of clarity that starts to happen around that time period. All right, so in terms of reversals, what I mean by that is, like, say that you lay down a card and it is reversed. When you are first starting to read tarot, I would just read that generally as a block. When I first started reading tarot, I did not read reversals. It was just too much. And if I did, then all I did was I just read it as like, I'm blocked around this energy, right? I don't read it as anything other than that. I really strongly believe that in terms of the reversals, if you strongly feel like it's supposed to be reversed, you need to read it, then you need to get into the book and you need to read it. Okay. Which takes me to my next thing. Having a good book is everything. My favorite tarot book for Rider Waite is the Biddy Tarot book. It's about this thick, and it is definitely my favorite in terms of modern tarot interpretations for like self-growth and not just like scary fatalistic predictions. Okay, Biddy is like the most amazing modern tarot teacher in my opinion, and her book is great. It will give you good readings without like horrifying you like old school tarot did. Okay, it's like empowering and like self-work revolved versus it's sounding like you are fated to this outcome. Okay, so there's that. Now, one more thing is a lot of people ask me, well, what's the difference between an oracle card and a tarot card? And the difference is that the tarot cards are the same archetypes, right? It's 78 cards that have the same outcome. So it's like a language, you know, you can begin to read it like a language once you understand the archetypes. They have the same thing. Oracle cards are about whatever the author creates. There's usually 48 to 54, but it completely depends on the author. It could be on any topic and there is no consistent language, right? So tarot is like, I could read any tarot deck as long as I understand like what is the basis of the archetype and what's the basis of the suit, then I can pretty much read any tarot cards, right? And get a pretty good understanding. With an oracle card, I have no idea. Like, I don't know. It's completely dependent on the author. However, one thing that I love to do is I love to use oracle in my readings to help me kind of wrap it all up, right? So I'll show you how to do it. So it's like, okay, Spirit, I see that I'm kind of coming to completion in like some old ways that have been really burdensome to me as I've been trying to go after the Queen of Pentacles. I see that I'm really going to have to keep working on nurturing the relationships that I want and taking steps towards my dreams and birthing this whole thing out. Totally makes sense. Like, can you wrap it up and put a bow on it for me, Spirit? Like, what's the big final message, you know, that I need to know? This one should not be in there. Like, what's the big, you know, new moon in Pisces final message that I need to know? You could also do like, what's my blessing card? You know, what's the blessing of this? But I'm going to say like, you know, what is the big message that the new moon in Pisces is going to bring about for me, Spirit? What is the big message for the new moon in Pisces for me, Spirit? 2 more, please. Big message for the new moon in Pisces for me. And 1 more. Yep. Okay. All right. And what I got was Laka. Okay. Now, again, see, like, I don't know what this card is about. Well, I'm going to set it down and then I'm going to go back into the book that the Oracle deck comes with, and I'm going to read about it. And then I'm going to record it in my book of shadows. And when I'm done, you know, I will smoke clear myself, and sometimes I'll use like a crystal, you know, like to program it, especially if it's a big reading, like a solar return reading or an eclipse reading or something big. And I will like keep this stone as like a placeholder of the energy for the reading that I did. Especially if that's like something I know I want to work on, where it's like, okay, this is like the stone that I'm using to keep holding like a paperweight, an energetic paperweight that is like holding the energy of this awareness of this reading. And like you can keep it and you can put it in spell jars. But it's like also something that you can, you know, when you have it in the center of your reading, it pulls all the energy of like what you're talking about, your awarenesses. So it's like something you could put in a medicine bag or keep in your pocket, or, you know, it could be a piece of sacred jewelry, like a ring, and you could like set it in there. And when you wear it, it's like you're continuing to like hold that energy of what you're working towards. Okay. And then, you know, you have your reading and you've done a whole reading. And like, I always say the more cards, the better. It just depends on the amount of time that you have. Okay. So anytime I pull a card and it's like the Tower card, the Death card, the 3 of Swords, the 7 of Swords, like some of the ones that are a little bit more scary from a historical perspective, I always do a clarification. Okay. So anytime that I'm like, I don't know what this means, I always do what I just showed you, where I take, you know, that shuffle and I just like ask the question until one of them pops out. And then I'll read it. Okay. And it might help me. At the end of the day, tarot is a divination tool. You might not know until it happens. But what will happen is that the more that you record it, the more you'll understand certain cards will haunt you. Certain cards will like have specific like messages or flags for you when you're like, oh, I know what this is about, right? Like for me, the Queen of Pentacles, I know what this is about because I've been working with the Queen of Pentacles energy for 4 years. So, you know, for me, I know what this whole thing is about when I see what's under it is the Queen of Pentacles, right? So it's like I'm really still working towards these goals. I'm letting go of stuff that's too heavy, too burdensome. And I need to, you know, find new ways to deal with this stuff. Okay. So hopefully this has been helpful for you guys. I will share the links and make sure you go through the Patreon, like the video, and then also in the docs and files on Basecamp, because there's more tarot videos that are on there that I store for you guys to watch later. All right, I will check you guys later. This is your March workshop, Tarot 101. See you later.